brings us on nicely to the Premier League, actually. Obviously, Cazorla signing for Arsenal. Paolo, I know you've got your eye in over at the Emirates. I mean, Cazorla, is he just another Arshavin or one of these pretty little players that's going to play down the side, or are we looking at a Pires or an Henry who's actually going to convert the fortunes of the old great club?
I think he might fall somewhere between the two. I mean, Cazorla, I don't believe is a player quite on the level of a David Silva or a Juan Mata, but he's a player who can give Arsenal an incisiveness and something that particularly they need if Theo Walcott doesn't end up staying this summer. And it's sort of the forgotten story at Arsenal, because everyone's talking about Robin van Persie, is that there's still this outstanding situation with Theo Walcott's contract. And I think there was certainly room and some need for another player who could provide that sort of speed and incision from the flanks. So obviously everyone hopes he's going to pan out better than Arshavin did, but they are, with Arshavin presumably on the way out and Walcott possibly as well, there was a need for another player of that ilk.
Absolutely. And one other player that Arsenal signed is Lucas Podolski. Obviously, we will have seen him in European Championships and World Cups. Very direct player. He scores goals. He gets forward. Where's he going to fit in at Arsenal, though, Rafa? Is he going to be able to fit into that system?
Well, he can fit into almost any system, I think. He's got that versatility, and I think that was one of the reasons why Arsene Wenger signed him, because he's a possible upgrade on Gervinho out wide left, in my opinion. He can play in the Van Persie role just behind the striker, the old Van Persie role maybe, and he can play in the new Van Persie role as the main striker, leading the line. He showed against lots of much better opposition in Germany over the last season that he can lead the line on his own, which is something that perhaps he didn't have in his Arsenal, if you pardon the pun, before. So he's matured, and I think there's a good reason why he's already, I think, sort of a fan's favourite, because he brings that directness. I think a word that you not necessarily associate with Arsenal over the last few years. He's someone who loves to shoot. He's someone who loves to have a go. He's not as technical as some of the other players. He's more physical. He's a little bit more robust, and he's a winner. And I think he is a good signing who should become better playing with good players around him, because let's face it, he hasn't really had any decent colleagues to play with at club level for quite a while, since he moved back to Köln after a stint at Bayern that didn't quite work out for him.
And what sort of personality are we talking about here with Podolski? I mean, with Cazorla, for example, we have a signing who has a huge legion of fans in Spain because he has the cojones, he has the fortitude to really bring the game to the opposition regardless of the circumstance. Arsenal seem to have had a whole host of players that they've signed who haven't, to pardon the cliche, fancied a wet Tuesday night at Stoke. Where does Podolski fit into that?
Well, I mean, I think Podolski, attitude-wise, is no longer an issue. I think there was a time when he moved to Bayern as a very young player in 2006 where he felt he's already achieved, and now it's up to sort of the club to give him the confidence and to put him in the side and let him do his thing. Of course, it wasn't like that, because he was surrounded by other strikers and he found it hard to have regular playing time, and I think his attitude on and off the pitch was a little bit immature. Some of it smacked of laziness when it came to perhaps taking up the right positions, but he's really matured. He's really become much more rounded person and a better player for that. And I think the move has come at the right time for him. He's under a little bit of pressure when it comes to German national side to keeping his place, but that's that could also work in Arsenal's favour, because he'll really have to show himself. And of course, he needs to establish himself afresh in a very different environment. So, it might take a little bit of time, but all the indications are that I think it's come at a good time for him and the club, and I wouldn't be surprised if it works out well for both of them.
Great news. I mean, Arsenal at 1.57 to qualify for the Champions League. I mean, the English Premier League is probably about as, in terms of the top, making the top four, is as open as it's been for a long time. I mean, one interesting club this year is going to be Chelsea. Obviously, looked pretty lackluster in the Community Shield the other day. I actually watched them last week against my beloved Brighton and Hove Albion, who beat Chelsea 3-1. And that was a full Chelsea side as well. So they're obviously not in great form if Brighton can embarrass them in that way. But I mean, Jack, you're a South American football expert. They've signed Oscar. Can you see him making a huge impact there?
I think in the long term, I think he's going to be an excellent signing. He's a player that he's a very intelligent player, very modern type of attacking midfielder in that he won't just hold his position, he'll drop to each flank, he'll drop deep occasionally, but he's got that little burst of speed to get past the striker and get into goal-scoring positions as well. He's two-footed, he's a nice little passer, and I think he's going to make a really nice impression in England. Having said that, he is still young, and Chelsea have got an unreal amount of players in that competing for those 3 spots behind the striker.
Yeah, I mean another one competing for that spot is new signing Marco Marin. Rafa, what can you tell me about him?
Well, Marin is really a wide player, and the problem for him was that when he came to Bremen, they tried him as a replacement for Diego, who is very much a fantasista, trequartista, number 10 really. And he's kind of lost his confidence and his form a little bit since his move there. He also struggled with injuries. He's still not 100%, and that was the reason why he hasn't been in the mix for Germany. But on his day, on the flanks, he can really do damage. And I think he will bring a bit of the width that Chelsea haven't really had, perhaps ever since they let Ian Robben and Damon Duff go. So, they've been a very narrow side, and it suited them in many ways, especially defensively. But when it comes to taking on teams who mess the midfield, and you need that 1v1 type player who can beat someone and make someone happen, I think Marin is a good player. Will he start? I'm not sure, but I think a definite improvement as far as the squad is concerned. And who knows, with a bit of luck and the right fitness levels, if he can get a continued run, we might see the best of him. He's a good little signing. I don't think he's someone who will necessarily slot into the top 11 straight away.
Seems like they have a lot of those good signings that won't slot to the starting level. Fascinating one this season as well. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers has come in. One signing that particularly interests me is that of Fabio Borini, who started his career at Chelsea and spent time with Brendan Rodgers there, and also on loan at Swansea later on. But he almost flattered to deceive a lot in England, but has since gone back to Italy and made a name for himself. Paolo, is he the finished article now?
He's not the finished article. I think he's an interesting player. I'm definitely fascinated to see how he does in the Premier League. For me, his talent lies much more in his ability to find positions than it does necessarily in his technical ability. And that's not to do him down as a technical player. He's certainly he's not a Pippo Inzaghi. He's got technical skills as well. But really, where his value lies, or certainly where he showed it at Roma last season, was just knowing where to be to create himself opportunities to score, and he's got a fantastic talent for finding those spaces and getting in behind defences. My big reservation about him would be that he was also incredibly streaky. There was, I think, a run of 7 goals in 8 games or similar, and then he didn't score again for 2 months after that. So he goes through these patches where he's red hot, and then he goes through other patches where he doesn't seem to do it. But I think he's certainly. Look, Liverpool's problem last year was not creating chances, it was scoring goals. And I think that in that regard, Fabio Borini is certainly the right type of player they were looking for.
So you think he can definitely play alongside Suarez, for example, with Gerrard in behind? You think that's a natural fit?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Suarez is a player who likes to take up deep positions, give himself room to roam. I think Borini will be, although he played on the left at Rome last season, I think he'll be very happy to take up positions closer to the defender's last shoulder.
And what sort of personality are we talking about with Borini? Is he a good trainer? Does he have an attitude problem? He obviously enjoys England because he's back here for a third time.
He's too good, or at least he was too good for Roma in terms of his attitude towards training. The grief he got in Rome was for being goody two shoes, and there was a particular situation developed last year when Daniele De Rossi was dropped for a game by Luis Enrique because he showed up late for training, and there was a big furore over this because De Rossi's a huge player, obviously, and whether or not it was the right thing to do. And someone asked Barini whether or not whether he thought it was the right decision to drop De Rossi, and Barini said, "Well, I wouldn't know about that. I don't have to worry about this sort of thing because I'm always 20 minutes early." So that sort of comment in a city like Rome, where perhaps people like their heroes a little bit rough and ready in Rome sometimes. I think he got this characterization of being a bit of the class SWAT, I guess. But I think lots of managers wouldn't complain too much about that.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, if he can gel well with the likes of Gerrard and Suarez, then Liverpool at 2.75 for a Champions League place could be very good value indeed. Let's move on finally to the top of the table in England. And Manchester City and obviously Manchester United. Very strange summer for Manchester United. Seems like they need to strengthen. Obviously on the verge of this Van Persie deal. Jack, I mean, can you see Manchester United really sticking it to City this year, or do you think they're still a little bit off the pace?
I think they will have a slight problem in catching that gap up because Sir Alex Ferguson, he must have a database of potential signings, and he must have unchecked the central midfielders filter because it's just I just cannot get my head around his refusal to look at that kind of player in a squad that's crying out for it. So we know that there are players on the market who would fit that position. I mean, not least Sahin, who I already mentioned. He's a player who Arsenal have been linked with. He'd be a wonderful signing for United. He's obviously very familiar with Kagawa, having played with him at Dortmund. I think that would be exactly the kind of, not necessarily big money, but a smart cut price deal for Nuri Sahin would be the kind of signing that would really take United to the next level instead of signing winger upon winger upon winger. So I think
it seems to be a running theme actually of English clubs buying wide player after wide player after wide player. I mean, you mentioned Kagawa there. Rafa, if I can bring you in and just get some insight into Kagawa and what pedigree he's going to bring to the United side.
Well, Kagawa is really a wonderful little player who's obviously still developing. He's only his third season in Europe, but I think he's the kind of guy that will really add something that has been missing, in my view, a little bit, which is pace in the United lineup. And, his link-up play is really phenomenal. He's got fantastic intelligence. He can be direct if he wants to be, but he can also just look for the layoff and look for the other better positioned player. And, if him and Rooney can struck up a partnership, and there are early indications that they can, I think it could be really, really exciting. The understanding that Kagawa had with Lewandowski was quite breathtaking, and Rooney, of course, a better, more versatile player than Lewandowski. So, I think it's a great signing. He can play in the hole. He can play out wide left as he does for Japan. He can easily play out on the other side. I don't think he can play further back. I know some people, I think, maybe were hoping that he's sort of more of a Modric type. He's not really. He's someone who's happiest when he hasn't got the ball, but can actually take a position where he will get the ball further forward. And I completely agree with Jack. I still think there is that number 6, number 8, or a combination of the two of them missing in a United midfield, somebody they haven't really had with real authority, real dominance for quite a while. And so far, Ferguson, for whatever reason, seems to think he's not needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it might be interesting because there's been times when he's moved Rooney back into midfield. I wonder if they do sign Van Persie, whether Rooney might move back a little bit, and then you have the likes of Kagawa running through. It's interesting also what you say there about Kagawa bringing genuine pace to the United attack, maybe something that they've been lacking since Ronaldo. Just want to move on to Manchester City finally. Paolo, you iterated earlier that Roberto Mancini has obviously been traditionally very good at domestic competitions, but has struggled in Europe. I mean, in terms of the Premier League this year, can you see him starting a real dynasty now of success at the City of Manchester Stadium?
Yeah, I think that, partly, obviously Mancini deserves a significant amount of credit, but this squad is set up to keep winning. And I think that when you look at, for me, the gulf between City and the rest of the league is significant, and it was remarkable in the end that United were able to get as close to them as they were last season. I think that now they know they've won the title. they know they won the title once, and you've got all the players know what they're capable of doing together. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't take another step forward this year, and therefore it's going to be a huge challenge given they were on 89 points last season. If they take another step forward, it's going to be a huge challenge for someone to keep up with them. So I think City are very well set up to start something quite big in the Premier League, and it'll be interesting to see how United and the rest respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the other fascinating thing that comes out of the Community Shield the other day is the form of Carlos Tevez. I mean, Jack, hearing whisperers always over in Argentina, obviously, about the fact that Tevez wants to go home. They seem to have died down recently. I mean, do you think he's happy? Do you think you can see him seeing the season out now that presumably the relationship with Mancini has been patched up?
I think Carlos Tevez is the kind of player whose happiness is more or less dictated by how much playing time he's getting. I think the whole issue that occurred last season, the incident in Munich, and the falling out with Mancini, I think, if Tevez starts that game, Tevez probably doesn't have a moan. The issue doesn't come up. He seems like a player who, when he's on that pitch, he doesn't ever lack for commitment. And I think if he's getting game time early in the season, I don't see any reason why he can't become, get back to being a really important player for Manchester City.
Absolutely. I just want to finish off by getting, we have a market running on the exact finishing order for the Premier League, first and second. Jack, I'll start with you. Who are you tipping to be 1 and 2 in the Premier League, and in which order?
I'm going to say Manchester City to win the league, followed by Chelsea.
Manchester City followed by Chelsea is at 6.50, which is a very interesting bet. Paolo, how about you? Who do you fancy this year for the top two?
Exactly the same as last year. City, then United, but I think the gap will be bigger than goal difference.
Interesting stuff. And finally, Raphael, what do you see happening in the Premier League this time out?
Yeah, well, I agree with Paolo for once. I think that's the likeliest outcome. I think that they are the two best teams. I think they're the most settled teams. If you look around them, everyone seems to sort of reinventing themselves, rebuilding. Spurs are very much a new side. Chelsea's still amidst of a revolution. Who knows where it's going to go and who it's going to kill before they're going to actually get anywhere. And the same with Liverpool. So I think United, because of the setup, and City, because of the strength, by far the best two teams for me.
Fantastic. So, I mean, the odds on, same as last year, Manchester City and Manchester United is 3.95. I actually think Arsenal, with the likes of Podolski and Cazorla coming in, are going to make more of a play for it this year. So I'm tipping Manchester City to win the league and Arsenal in second, which is actually at, if I can find it.
There's no odds for it because Arsenal are just not that good enough.
Yeah, there's not actually a market on it, so it must be huge. There is. It's 15.0. So with Wenger rallying the troops and all of that attacking talent that we've just been discussing, I think that's a very good bet indeed. Okay, gents, that brings us to the end of this video cast, our pre-season special. Those of you watching can follow Unibet on Twitter @Unibet. Also check out all the latest transfer news, previews and betting tips at bet.unibet.com. I want to thank Jack Lang, our very own Unibet editor and South American football expert. Thank you, Jack, for joining us.
No problem, thanks.
Italian football expert, broadcaster and journalist Paolo Bandini, thank you for joining us.
See you guys.
And finally, last but certainly not least, Raphael Honigstein, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.
Okay. Join us again very soon as we ramp up the coverage towards the new season on bet.unibet.com. Thank you.